So if you were paying attention in the last video, you may have noticed a small error I made which resulted in Rhode Island being removed from the United States. And as I also mentioned, that was a process that was destructive to the data that we were linking to, which happens to be living in this folder here. So the point is, just be careful not to do that. We could bring it back, but it's kind of complicated. I'll maybe show that at another time. But I do want to go to my attributes table just to show you where the error was made. When I created my query, I started it as if the area is less than, and I think it was 0.272, which was the value associated with Rhode Island. I had some other stuff that wasn't working out, so I thought I could simply outsmart it by changing that to a greater than, and then doing a query swap when it was all done, or a switch selection. But the problem was I should have actually said greater than or equal to that value in order to keep Rhode Island. So that's where the mistake was. That's alright. This will still work for the example that I'd like to show you. And while I've got the attribute table open here, let me just scroll through this really quick. You can see there's lots of attributes and lots of values. Some make sense, some maybe not so much. You could always refer to that text file associated with this to find out what some of these mean. For example, what does CH99, oh, it must be change between 99 and 2000. Median age. So these ones are pretty self-explanatory. But you don't have to see them all. If you're coming back to the attributes table often for quick visual queries, and you don't mind so much what the median age is, you can right-click on that header and select Turn Field Off. And we could do that to any number of these. They're still there, they're just not going to show up when we load up our attribute table. Let me close that. I'll right-click on my feature set, go down to Properties. If we go to the Fields tab, here's where we can control their visibility. So I can turn those back on by doing that. But for this example, I just want to look at a few different ones. So let's click here to turn them all off, and I'll just turn on state. I want to do county to show you a small problem. Population 2000, male, female population, and the male to female ratio. So that's what we'll be making our theme-based map off of. If I right-click, go to my attributes table, now I only see those 6 attributes. But there's a small problem here. If you look at Arizona and look at the population, you probably know that Arizona has a population larger than 69,000. You'll also notice that there is a county associated with each state. So the reason that this looks this way, that census data was really meant to be joined to the shapefile dataset, not to the state outline dataset. When we joined the table and it removed a bunch of these, it just linked the first alphabetical county name data to the state. So that's why we're seeing all of these A's and B's and C county names. And it's the county that the population field is related to. So just keep that in mind. Why this data is incorrect. I don't mind so much that it's incorrect because I just want to show you an example of how to classify our map or create a theme map based off of this information. And we'll be using this field here, the male to female ratio. It's scaled, so what these numbers mean is for every 106 males, there's 100 females. For every 98 males, there's 100 females. So knowing what that means, I'll close that, right-click, go down to Properties. This time we'll go to the Symbology tab. All kinds of ways to change how your map looks. If you just want to change the color, you can do that here. Hit Apply. There we go. If you want to color based off of a category, you can do that here. For example, I will add all values for my states. I'll change the color mode to something else. Let's do, how about that one? Kind of earthy colors. Hit Apply. Now each state field has its own color. And actually, let me close that. Another neat thing you can do here is label those based off of those colors, and we do that by right-clicking on the attribute name and going to Label Features. Now, if you remember in the last video, we removed all the little islands around the coastal states, and had we not done that, we would see a bunch of Washington labels up here because each island was a feature, and we're labeling all of the features based off of a value. So that's an example of why you may have wanted to remove that information based off of the type of map you want to create. So let's turn off the label features, right click, and I'll go to properties. To color based off of the male to female ratio, we'll use a quantity classification system. So the first one is fine, graduated colors. The value that we'll be basing this off of is male to female. And by default, it just gives you 5 based off of what's called the natural breaks. But we just simply change these values to manually edit that. And we actually only want 3 classes. So, for example, if I click here, I'll edit the high number, and I'll say if there's we'll give this 1 degree of statistical error. So I'll say if it's up to 98, color it 1 color. And let's make that red. If it's between 98 and 101, and you only need to type in the high value here, again, I'll hit tab. Let's make that green. And any remaining values will be colored blue. So if there's less than 100 or less than 98 males for every female, that means there's more females. And I'm kind of fudging the data a little bit because otherwise we wouldn't get any green. For the label, it's just as simple as typing in more gals, the same, and more dudes. With all that done, hit apply. There we go. Very simple, kind of interesting thematic based map. The next thing we'll look at is the actual layout of this, and we just click on our layout view to access that. I can change this data frame. If I want that to fit within these extents, I can just hit zoom extents. Now, you may or may not want the black border on this frame. To change that, just right click on top of it, go to properties, and then find your frame tab. You can either give it any number of these frames or just select none, which I'd like to do for this example. And adding a table is really quite easy. Just go to insert, legend. Now if you're interested, I'll let you go through the wizard on your own, but I'll just click through quickly to get all of the default settings. And there we go. It's kind of nice because it's really a dynamic legend. If we were to go back to our attribute table, or I'm sorry, well, I guess we could either change the attributes or change the properties. So what I'll do here is I'll change these to add a little bit more green values. And because that shifted everything around, I have to change my label again. Apply. So 2 things should change. My labels should change, and the states that are colored green have a greater chance. Hit apply, close, and I can see that's changed over here as well. If you want to edit the legend, you can double click and go through the different settings in here. But a really quick way to do it is to explode it, or essentially turn it into something like graphics. So from here I can just right click, select convert to graphics. It's no longer dynamic, but now I can right click and ungroup and manually change these, like delete. If I double click, I think I can change this to you know, whatever you'd like. You know what? And let's change this to year 2000. That's a little bit more fitting for this map. And we can move things around to position. Now, as a part of this assignment, I want you to make a comparison. So you might imagine a very simple one would be to compare this to, for example, the year 1990 census data. And we could start kind of where we ended the first video by holding down Control and making a copy of our map. That creates a new data layer. And then we could go to the National Atlas, find the census data for 1980, download it, put it on your desktop, go back to here, and just repeat the steps that we went over. You'd probably want to, whoops, I clicked on the wrong thing. Right click. You'd probably want to remove the joins first and then go back and add them again. So a very, very simple theme-based map comparison. One of the requirements is you have to use a county-based shapefile for this very purpose of the data would not be accurate this way. So I look forward to seeing what you come up with.